Hi, my name is Tati and welcome to my channel. I saw this trend going around of reading 1-star reviews of books that you gave a 5-star. I thought that would be really fun if I did that too because personally, I like to be rage baited just a little bit. Just a little bit. So today we're going to go through some of the books that I gave like 4 and 5 stars and just read a bunch of other people just dogging the books out. Today was really chill, so I think we have some space for some aggravation. I feel like I don't give out 5 stars a lot, but I am kind of loose with my 5-star criteria. It really depends on how much I enjoyed myself while I was reading the book. If there's no like major plot holes to the point where even me, who, especially when I'm listening to a book, can be very like passive and just listen and enjoy the story for what it is without too much analyzing. I'm a lot more nitpicky when I'm like physically reading the book. As far as audiobooks go, I just let it play. Not too much of my 5 stars, not too much of my highly rated books, okay? So let's just go ahead and get started. So the first book that we're gonna start with is Fourth Wing. Let's just go ahead and get it out of the way. Everybody does it, everybody knows it, and I'm not above the hype. I really enjoyed it. Violet is my girl. Xaden is my guy. Like, I love that man. Hold on. I'm cracking up. By the way, I gave Fourth Wing 5 stars, but also I read it pretty early in my reading journey. But in my mind, I'm like, that book is still a 5-star. I haven't gone back. And also, yo, I listened to the audiobook. So a lot of my 5 stars will also be like audio because I'm really lenient with the 5 stars when it's audio because it's like, it is like a movie in your mind. I can visualize it better when I'm listening to it and it's happening quickly because when I'm reading it physically on the page, like I can get distracted. Whereas if I'm listening to it or somebody else is reading it, then it's like I don't have time to get distracted because that book is going to play whether I'm listening or not. So I better pay attention. The first one that I see, it's a 0 star. Babe said DNF at 10%. I always love the books that have a lot of hype because I'm basic and love tropes, but this was not doing it for me. It felt a lot like the fantasy books my friends and I would write in middle school. The worlds weren't lived in enough for me. The names felt so fake and the world wasn't fleshed out enough. I think it might have worked better as low fantasy. Maybe I'm not the one to say. I don't really get the whole high fantasy, low fantasy, regular fantasy thing. I didn't know low fantasy was a thing. And it felt so juvenile. I could see that. I can see that. Of course it's juvenile because very much so it's, I hate that guy, but he's so cute. Oh my God, is he looking over here? No, don't talk to me, but like keep talking to me. Like it's very like that. So girl, you're not wrong, but that's my vibe. So author really couldn't find a better way to show us world building than having the main character explicitly tell it to us as she tries to calm herself down. Hunger Games already did this and infinitely better. The whole info dumping thing, yeah, that's like a cop-out way or like a really easy way to get through all of like the backstory and history and information. But this is where I say that my experience with it through the audiobook comes through. Hearing the narrator like do the intonation and like the quickly like it makes sense that that's the way that she's processing that information or how she's handling the stressful situation she's in. So it doesn't really bother me, but I can see how that could be annoying when you're reading the book and you're like, okay, now there's this whole paragraph of context that like feels unprompted. And she says, also, this is a personal thing, but I hated the way the male love interests were described. Enemies to lovers chill and all, but when he actually threatens to kill you and you have to run from him at every turn, that's not sexual tension, baby. That's just a red flag and it makes me uncomfy. To each their own. But works for me. She said 1/4 of a star. Okay. Finishing this book was a punishment. And what was the crime? Probably falling for book talk's BS once again. I hear a lot of people talking about how like book talk tricked me, book talk da da da. Yeah. Yeah. It does that sometimes. TikTok is about whatever is most popular or whatever, actually not even most popular. TikTok is about whatever the hype train is. And I feel like it's the big 2026. Like we should already know that hype train means nothing. Just because everybody is talking about it doesn't mean that it's good. It just means that it's popular. For me personally, I wouldn't be upset with book talk because the book that I read was trash. If anything, be mad at the author. Like, nearly every character in this book felt so unimportant and are absolutely forgettable, especially since the author clearly kept forgetting to describe what these characters even look like, an example being Dane. When she initially introduced his character, I could barely visualize what he looked like until about a chapter later when she finally decides to mention his light brown curls. Wow. I can't even say that she's wrong because it's been a while. I don't remember how Dane was described. I know the picture I have in my head, and light brown curls was not it. So she might be onto something there. See, this is what I'm looking for. Not gonna lie, this mess was so butt. I read it in a book club with my friend just to see what the hype was, and we struggled to find a single good thing. A single good thing? Though we really did try. The writing is horrible, the dialogue is cringe, the action is boring and confusing, and the characters feel like they're 12 years old. Enemies to lovers should never start out with the characters already attracted to one another. It defeats the entire point. So one note and flat. Every character has the same voice and mannerisms. It feels like the author never went back and reread a single word she wrote. It's just scenes that she wanted to write strung together haphazardly, like she couldn't find a way to get the characters where she wanted them to be. Truly, the best part about reading this was finishing it so I could delete the ebook that I illegally torrented off my phone. Well, it sounds like she got her money's worth. That's enough of that. We're going to go into the next one, which is A Court of Silver Flames, because I know a lot of people did not like that book. And for me, that is my favorite one after Mist and Fury. I know the people got hate for this one. I know they got hate for this one. This girl's real angry. This book is abuse apologism wrapped up in a self-insert pity party, written by someone who doesn't know the bare basics of what emergency surgery means, nor how to have a character say the words, "I'm sorry," in any meaningful way. Ironic given one of the author's advertising strategies for this book was to exploit Breonna Taylor. Okay, I heard about that whole Breonna Taylor thing fairly recently. I actually read the post, and the post itself, the justification for it makes sense to me. It's already going to be a whole bunch of people looking at this post, so now it's a whole bunch of people looking at Breonna Taylor's name. Like, it's a lot more people are seeing her name. Do I think it was the most tasteful thing that could have been done? No, but I get it. Should it have been done? I don't think so. I don't know. But it was done. But as far as this whole, like, the I'm sorry thing, listen, I get Nesta so bad. I get that girl so bad. It's like when you're really, really angry and the only way that you have been expressing that your whole life has been like spewing it at other people, it does take time to be able to reel it back, especially because, a little spoiler alert, she's mad at her dad. She's trying to punish her dad by not contributing. And then here Feyre come along doing all the work. She's like, no, girl, sit your butt down because it's his job. And if he wants us to starve, we gonna starve. How dare you come up in here and make us not starve? It's ridiculous, yes, but when you're outside of the picture, it's very clear. But when you in it, it's like it's happening to you. I guess I'm a Nesta apologist. You're right. The basis of what emergency surgery is. They got magic. They have magic. I don't think you need to know what the basis of emergency surgery is. This next one says, I love the entire series until we finished off with this one. This series would have done better without it, in my opinion. If you want to hear Nesta complain and for 600 pages, go ahead. Go for it, because that's exactly what this entire book was about. I scraped my knees so hard dragging along to finish this book. Honestly, that's exactly what I want to read. That's exactly what I want to hear. I want to hear Nesta complain and whine and be upset and get all of that anger and animosity and guilt and frustration out so that she can heal. And that is what it was. I loved it. That's exactly what I was looking for. And her and Cassian, yeah, I feel like it helped. That's what she needed. I mean, but I'm gonna have to give it to you about that whole spice thing. It did get a little egregious. There was a few chapters towards the end where I was like, again. Also, this is the only one of the ACOTAR series that I read physically. I went to that library, I got that giant book, and I read it cover to cover in a week. I loved that book. If only there was a way for this book to be unpublished. I feel like that would be a disservice. I'm not getting it. Unpublished? Like, shouldn't exist. That's how she's feeling. Should not exist. Yep, after a few months trying to read it, I can confidently say I will not be finishing this book. Almost 800 pages of the worst written character in the whole series being insufferable. I really tried, but I just cannot find it in me to care about Nesta. You know, I feel like if you already have no space in your heart for a character as unlikable as Nesta, then of course this book would have been just torture to get through. I get that. But me, I was open. I was receptive. I feel like y'all not being receptive. You know what I'm saying? I feel like you're closed off. I feel like you need to open your heart. I think you need to do a little bit of soul searching to find some grace for somebody who's not perfect. And really listen to where they're coming from. If you dig a little bit deeper, I feel like everybody is viewing Nesta very surface level of just of her actions and what she's done, and not really take into account her thought process and what she's been through. That is where this lack of grace is coming from for Nesta. Because it's like you have Feyre's story. You've got the sob story of I was the youngest, nobody ever taught me how to read. I gotta go out there and hunt and do everything for the family and nobody appreciates me. Yes, we get that. That is valid. That girl had a tough life. She deserves all her flowers. She deserves to have the best. But I feel like we're not extending any grace to Nesta to be like, she was there too. It's like, y'all don't want to get her. Y'all don't want to get my dog. So Project Hail Mary now. What did I give this one? 4.75? I had just the best time. I loved it. So let's see what y'all haters had to say about it. This person said DNF at 35%. Yeah, this has confirmed that I'm not enthusiastic about science. I'm not enthusiastic enough about science to read a book this large about it. I'll just watch the film. Every time Rylan hashes out an equation, I feel like I'm in year 10 chemistry and physics. Derogatory. I can see that. I can be a little bit like of a snob when it comes to anything that like is educational outside of an educational setting, because I have a very like I can do anything kind of personality. So like the second I hear like it's too much science, I'm like, it's too much science. I gotta work on that. That's not nice. I gotta be better. It says, dang, DNF at 56%. This made me sad. I was pretty excited for this one, but I just wasn't really connecting with the main character, and I didn't care that much about all the science. I can understand why people love this, but I just didn't. Maybe I'll go back and finish this someday. How optimistic. I didn't feel like this book was super science technical heavy, because like, to me, I felt like anytime that he started to get too sciencey, he would immediately like cut that tension with like, y'all just trust me. Like that's how I felt it was. He would start to talk all sciencey and then he'd be like, but it worked. And that's all you need to know. I liked the fact that there was like the sciencey element to it, because it was like, if you did any more research or dug a little bit deeper, it only added to the story. But I feel like not understanding the science to me didn't take anything away from the story. The writing ticked me off so bad. And why did this scientific genius have the inner monologue as a 2-year-old? Also, I couldn't give an iota of finally free from the shackles. Wow. I felt like he had like a young personality. Like he was kind of sarcastic, very goofy. Like he seemed like a guy's guy. Should a science genius be boring? Like he don't get to be funny? He can't enjoy himself? My dog was alone in a spaceship. Like, you gotta entertain yourself somehow. Honestly, surprised at the overwhelming amount of positive reviews this book has. To me, the humor was cringe. Okay, I feel like we know I feel like we know where this is going. The writing felt juvenile, and the scorned, ridiculously overqualified scientist turned science teacher who just happened to be an expert in every stream of science ever made the MMC unlikable. The insane amount of scientific jargon constantly thrown around felt like I was a 6-year-old being forced to read a textbook on quantum physics. The humor was cringe, so him being personable or like being like more of a regular person, having a layman's humor is cringe, but then when he talks science, that was too much. Like, I feel like you're doing too much. The insane amount of scientific jargon constantly thrown around felt like I was a 6-year-old being forced to read a textbook. The stuff that he wrote in the book, it wasn't even like, I was gonna say it wasn't even rocket science. It was a little bit rocket science. I feel like a lot of people are reviewing this book as if it was like a lecture by Neil deGrasse Tyson. Like, it really wasn't even like that. DNF at 50%, not because the book is bad, but because after watching the movie and already knowing how it's gonna play out, I just don't have the motivation to continue on. And because I told myself to DNF more this year instead of forcing myself to finish books I'm not interested in. You know what? Good for you. It's good to have a goal and then stick to that goal. I do feel like you made a mistake. Like, yeah, you know how it's going to turn out, but I feel like the way that it turns out in the actual like process of getting there, it's better flushed out in the book. And I feel like it's more interesting in the book. The movie just glosses over the entire end of the book. It just wraps it up in this like nice, neat little bow and just doesn't tell you anything. Whereas I felt like the book was, I don't know, I just felt like the book was more interesting, more entertaining, more thoughtful overall. All right, so the next one is Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. This was like the second book that I had read since I started reading again. I gave it like a pretty high, did I give it 5 stars? I don't even remember. That was my first Ali Hazelwood. I liked that one. I know a lot of people did not like it, but I liked it. And then everything afterwards has been very hit or miss with Ali Hazelwood for me. Oh my gosh, everybody who disliked this book wrote a whole novel. So I very much hate read this just so I can get 2 Goodreads achievements with one book. This book felt like jumping into a conversation you had no business listening in on. I've never read such insufferable and boring characters ever in a book. I'm genuinely mad because this is the first Ali Hazelwood book I picked up, and I have 4 more others on my shelf. Yeah, that's tough. I cannot rationally come to any reason as to why this book needs to be over 400 pages. The BDSM part of this book wasn't the problem, even if it's not my personal favorite thing to read about. It's the whole approach to Lucas and Scarlett's relationship. Penelope was a pain in the butt the whole book, and I had no idea you could involve a meddling side character so much into a story that is not about them. Lucas's character kind of felt like he was like a bunch of Swedish stereotypes thrown into one character. Upon reflection, the book wasn't that good. You're not wrong. I was annoyed. I agree. Penelope was annoying and she was in the book so much. Like, literally, you are correct about that. For a side character, she was up in literally everything. In Lucas's business, in Vandy's business, everybody's business. Penn had a hand in. Like, I wouldn't change my rating on it because for the time I did enjoy it. But you're not wrong. DNF page 254. Babes, you was just about there. I literally tried so hard to get into this, but it just wasn't happening for me. I really didn't like this book, unfortunately, which seems to be an unpopular opinion. I couldn't seem to find any of the characters likable, lol, and I couldn't feel a connection to any of them. They all felt so forgettable and distant to me. The book didn't really talk about any of their characteristics besides this very skim the surface look into them and their sexual desires. Overall, I tried for way longer than I would normally try to get into this, mainly because of all the good reviews I've seen, but I couldn't do it. Maybe I'll come back to it at some point, but probably not. Yeah. I can see that. Which is also a complaint that I have about a few other like Ali Hazelwood books. They're kind of like forgettable. Like, I could really compare this book to The Love Hypothesis, which is actually crazy because that was the second Ali Hazelwood book I read and I hated that one. Well, I didn't hate it. I didn't like that one. So like reflecting on it now, at the time I really liked Deep End, but I didn't like Love Hypothesis. Now thinking back on it, I'm like, no, these books are very similar. Just like very predictable, but I mean, like, it's a contemporary romance. Like, there's only so many places that you can go, and it's fun most times, but it's just like, you know what's gonna happen. So I feel like the interest would come from the characters, and they weren't very interesting. I did like, dang, it's tough to even think about what I liked about it. Reading these bad reviews is really changing my perspective on this one book. Because I'm like, what did I like about that book? I don't remember. It might have just been the novelty. having completed a second book. Alright, so that just about wraps it up. It was interesting to read some of these people's thoughts on the books that I really enjoyed. Some of them had very valid points, other ones were just flat out wrong. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please like the video if you liked it, comment down below, and support a Black-owned business, baby. Subscribe to my channel. That is all from me. Bye! If I was your girl. I feel like if I brute force my way through everything would come together. I feel like if I... Y'all, come on. Punctuation. I can't. Commas are not illegal. I feel like if I brute force my way through, everything would come together.